Hello everybody, Brad Johnson here, and welcome to the next episode of the Expansion Point, episode number 6, where today we're going to be talking about life transitioning. So I just came back from a holiday from last week, so I'm looking forward to, again, restarting the Expansion Point here after a week of absence, and we're going to have a lot of exciting information in store for you today in this episode. So why don't we go ahead and get right into it. So, life transitioning. As humans are a social species, when a loved one transitions from physical life, grievance follows. To understand what you experience when leaving the body will bring a greater security and understanding to yourself and one nearing departure. Let's take a look at the common questions when it comes to life transitioning. So the first question we'll address is, where do we go when we transition past the physical body? Now again, this is where there is a lot of mixed perspectives about this idea, especially when you're looking at it on a religious level. On a religious level, it's always thinking, oh, there's heaven if you're good, there's hell if you're bad, right? And again, a lot of that is definitely a very strong state of distortion. Everybody goes back to spirit, right? That's simply how it is. Simply because we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Therefore, when you transition from this life, you're moving back into the spiritual realm, the spirit world in that way. Now, what's very, very important to understand as well, too, is that what you take with you is based upon the assignment and the intention and everything that represents the aura, as it were, of your life. What is left behind shall therefore go with you, right? So this is what many people refer to as unfinished business. If we have unfinished business, if we have karma that remains, then we often experience those levels of karma when we go off into life transitioning and return back into spirit. So this can represent the idea of feeling like we've lost a loved one, or we've had a relationship that we know we just don't want to leave, but of course it's time for us to go back into spirit. If it's financial ends, if it's greed, there's a million and one explanations about what can be left behind, and that we are creating some type of impression relating to what we are holding on to, right? So whatever we're not able to completely forgive, release, let go of, that is following us, and that will follow us into the next life. And if we're not able to correct those things, if we're not able to bring them back into harmony, then it's those karmic imprints that come back to us in the next lifetime where we choose to incarnate, and we go through this experience all again. This is why this lifetime right now is the most precious lifetime there is, because now you have the opportunity to correct, to align, to completely center yourself and harmonize all of these old woes, old karmic patterns that can now be completely brought into peace. And once you have that, you're going into the higher levels of spirit. So it's the idea about being able to stretch your boundaries. The more that you're stretching your boundaries, the more that you're forgiving a lot of aspects of yourself. You're forgiving yourself. You're forgiving impressions to what others have brought upon you. But again, it really is just yourself, right? So when you're forgiving your emotions, forgiving your traumas, forgiving your hardships, you move up into that clearer aspect of spirit. You're moving into the astral realms. You're connecting with loving, supportive beings as well too, as you start to really harmonize yourself, to bringing yourself into a higher state of consciousness. So we got quite a few questions, so I have to kind of run through this list pretty quickly since we only have a half-hour show. Is there a life review when we return back to spirit? There certainly is a life review. Yes, every single one of us has a life review. So if you're uncertain of what a life review is, think of it in the idea of almost like going into a theater, right? A 360-degree panoramic theater where one of your own guardian angels is actually showing you your life in review. And so you can look at all of these different people whom you have affected within your life in regards to you functioning as a catalyst. If there's a lot of pain, a lot of sorrow within your life, and you're feeling it through other people, then that emotion that they're feeling is actually funneling through you, which means you feel everybody's pain and you can feel everybody's happiness. It's a very, very intense experience. There have been many people who have come back from near-death experiences who have had these life reviews and said it was one of the most intense things ever, because you're voyeuristically connecting to all of these other people in your life who maybe you have hurt, who have gone through some very intense situations in your life, and you're feeling it all. You're feeling their thoughts, you're feeling their feelings, and it becomes just this rush. But this also relates to people who you have helped, who you have worked with. You are feeling their joy and you're feeling their happiness, right? And all based upon what the life review is showing you. This will give you the impression of saying, I'm going to go back, or that was fun, thank you. I'm going to go and move on to something else. So a life review is helping you to come to terms with your life, about how you affected your life. It's giving you the impression about what you are learning in this life, what you have not yet learned, and what you can learn if you decide to sign up for another life to come back to Earth altogether. So yes, life reviews do happen. Are there loved ones waiting for me when I return to spirit? All the time. Absolutely. If you have family members, friends, whoever it may be, that you know who have passed away and are in heaven, you could say, and then the time comes for you to life transition, and then you move back in there, you're being greeted by your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your best friends, animals as well too, right? All of this comes back together because you imprint upon those who are dearest to you, right? So if you have a very strong connection with your best friend, and it's like you're feeling like you're brother and brother, or sister and sister, or brother and sister, and you have that really deep, heartwarming connection, absolutely you will connect with them. Now the important thing as well to understand is that when a person life transitions, you're still in contact with that person. That person is not out of your reach. So you want to ensure that when that person transcends, you're still able to connect with them. And we're going to be talking about that in this episode as well too. But absolutely, loved ones are always there for you. And they're helping you as well too. When they transition, they see that maybe you're going through a challenging time, and they will come into your field and they will help you, right? A lot of us have those particular types of associations with loved ones acting as our guides, helping us through and moving past challenging situations. Can we choose when it is time for us to leave the body? Absolutely. Yes. That's the interesting thing here. Now, basically, if you're very much caught up in the idea of feeling that I just want to stay because I want to make sure my business is successful, I want to stay because of some particular type of artificiality, that's not really going to cut it as it pertains to choice. There needs to be a sincere, heartfelt reason that will actually allow your life contract to expand. So one particular example is a Tibetan monk. There was actually a documentary I was just watching the other day, and he's a Tibetan monk. You know, they would go inside their caves, they would meditate, they would be able to look at their entire cycles of lifetimes as well. And basically there was a ritual that they performed that would give the impression that it was time for them to transition into the next life. But he was getting guidance from an associate of his to stay behind and teach the young people about their spiritual nature, teach them about their inner spiritual development. And so instead of passing away at this particular age, he was able to voluntarily extend his life about a good 15 to 20 years so that he could stay and teach all these young people about spiritual discipline, self-empowerment, etc. This is something that you can do. If you really are able to look into life and understand the mechanisms of it, you're able to shape it quite well. So like I said, it's not about artificiality. I want to stay behind because I want to make $1 million in my business. No, that's not going to cut it. I want to stay behind because I haven't had enough ice cream. No, it's not going to stay through a selfish reason, right? Basically, your guardian angels are here, they're waiting for you to say, okay, it's time to come back, it's time to come home. Well, no, I haven't eaten enough ice cream. I need to get my business successful and make it a multi-billion-dollar business. And like, come on, let's go, right? That particular aspect of self-excuse with the aspect of selfishness is not going to extend your contract, right? That's all part of just being greedy or selfish in that way. And that is exactly the reason why your meant to leave this world right now, because you need to learn about where the selfishness lies, especially when you go into your life review. But when you are completely humbled, when you have a sincerity to yourself, where you know that you are helping others, you know that what you are doing is impacting others, even if a person comes up to you and says, please stay behind, please don't leave. There's so much that you're teaching other people, there's so much that they can continue to learn. Stay behind and teach them for a while longer. And now you are in that space, you're talking to spirit within, and saying, I would like to extend this because I know that the young people could really learn from a lot of what I'm sharing. And they'll say, all right, you'll do it. At age 100, you'll live. And then you will pass shortly after that time. So this is how we are able to negotiate this. Now, again, for negotiation of this manner, this is where there's a lot of spiritual discipline that needs to be developed. A lot of the yogis themselves will say that once you have awakened your kundalini, then you are able to, again, communicate with spirit much more deeply, and you're able to see much more of the inner workings of reality as well, too, and you're able to bend and shape it like a god, right? This is very true. This is, again, based upon the ideas of what I've taught, relating to the theta state, relating to connecting with the God mind, relating to sincerity, and that what you're doing is of service to all. It's not of service to one. If you're of service to one, you won't be able to have any particular flexibility because you're too dependent on the physical realm. So when you are working together and everything that you're doing is of great progress, is of great contribution to all, then you certainly will have flexibility as it relates to when you decide to leave. A lot of the human conditioning feels that, we're not in charge about when it's time for us to leave. Actually, we are. We are absolutely in charge. We have basically just given ourselves over to the external reality. We have formed too much of a dependency on the physical realm. And that's where it gives the impression that, yeah, we can't control our time to when we leave. It's not about controlling, but it's about the idea that you are able to negotiate. You form a relationship with the inner mechanisms of reality. And when you understand that premise, you're able to negotiate when you want to leave, because what you're doing, the work that you're doing in the world, is helping the world. Now that's a different story, right? Like I said, if it's a selfish reason, no, you're not going to be able to bend that idea of a contract when it's time for you to go back home. But when you are doing something glorious, something amazing, something wonderful, something that is really just inspiring and it's helping so many people, you absolutely have leeway in being able to negotiate your contract here in this body for an extended period. That can happen. Everything comes down to decision. That's an important thing to remember. So, moving on. Do we remain in spirit, or can we return back to earth or incarnate elsewhere at any time? Well, again, this is all based upon the energies of the person that is asking, right? So, usually, if we're looking at a very, very selfish person in that way, and they, again, are just really, really greedy, they want to build a multi-billion-dollar empire, they want to take money out of people's pockets, etc., and they haven't learned the lesson about how to work together with other people, they will come back. Simple as that, right? Their life review will just ensure that they're realizing about what they have become, and you can't hide from your life review. Your life review just opens all the doors, right? And so they may stay in spirit for a short amount of time to go through a bit of a healing process, but they will come back again, and they will work with this and saying, you need to learn about how to work together with people, about how to work with your fellow man, woman, and child, and how to bring harmony into your life. So this game of earth, in that sense, still represents an attachment to that person because of their greed, because of their obsession with trying to create a big business and trying to be successful and all that. But they haven't learned the true lesson of what earth is trying to teach them, and so they're still tethered to earth. So as long as you're still tethered to earth, you'll come back, right? It can certainly be breaks in between. There can certainly be intervals, right? So maybe it's 10 years before you have another incarnation, or 20 years before you have an incarnation, or a month before you have another incarnation. It all depends upon the person, right? When a person has, again, started to harmonize with the inner workings of reality, when they understand that they no longer are part of a rat race of drama here on this planet, when they're starting to understand that they are connecting with spirit much more deeply, when they have raised their kundalini, when they have activated themselves and they feel a harmonious connection with everything around them, no, you certainly do not have to stay here, right? It's mainly just comes down to the idea that where if there is nothing that tethers you to this world, then you are basically able to move past it, right? And that's what we do when we lift our kundalini up, when we go through inner processes, inner workings, when we're doing inner alchemy, when we're starting to work with the mechanics within reality, when we're empowering ourselves. All of these examples are giving us a clearer impression about how we can transition past the Earth program, right? So we're just here on Earth to fulfill a task. Once that task has been completed, and we're able to connect with our spiritual selves, because that's important, right? It's not just the idea that you're just remaining so much in the physical. When you're doing this spiritual work, you are connecting with spirit. It doesn't matter if you're not able to visually see spirit or hear spirit in that way, but you certainly feel spirit. You feel your actions. You're a behind the scenes aspect now, right? You're looking at the inner workings of reality. That is the aspect to graduation, when you're able to see things past the drama, when you're able to identify something beyond the five senses, when you're being able to work with spirit, when you're being able to contribute, when you're being able to empower yourself, then you're in the alignment of completely severing all of these cords, dropping all of the tethers that represent Earth, right? So you're dropping all the tethers, and now you're able to go elsewhere. You can go to other planets, you can go to other dimensions, you can go to other realities. There's no limit about what you can do. But what you hold on to is what you have to face. So the whole idea here is that we have to make sure that whatever we're putting into fruition, we're seeing it through, right? If we make a choice, again, I've talked, my channeling state through Adronis has talked about the nature between choice and decision, right? When we're making choice, this is again often created in haste, and then we create a lot of karmic backdrops with all of these decisions. And again, it puts us in a rat race and saying, oh my goodness, I can't trust myself now, or this is getting too out of hand, or my family doesn't trust me, or whatever it may be. All of this karmic backlash is taking place. And so when we are able to harmonize all of that and realize that we're able to see more behind the scenes, then we're able to shift past all of those old dramas. We're able to drop the tethers and we're able to go elsewhere. So whatever tethers you to this world is what will keep you here to this world until you learn how to let it go. And how to let that go is working with the inner workings of reality. Okay? So moving on. Whereas the body dies, you are undying. How deep you work with becoming boundless will reflect upon your soul when you return to the spirit world. You control your perspective on the infinite. Walls and boundaries are made based on your beliefs and personal restrictions. Leaving the body brings you to a greater expansion. You become more of yourself when the time comes to return to spirit. So again, we have to understand that when we start to develop our spiritual selves, when we're looking more deeply into spiritual integration, this is how we're finding a lot more about ourselves. This is where we're able to explore the vastness of the universe. We're able to go to different dimensions, different realities. We communicate with angelic beings, with ETs, with EDs, extra dimensionals. The sky's the limit, or I would say the universe is the limit. It's being able to let go of this old fixation of feeling that we are so grounded in the body and that we're too physicalized, right? And that's what keeps us held back in the idea of our own state of expansion. So when we start to let go of a lot of these old concepts and realizing that it's tethering us to this body and that we're just living life purely by how we see the body, then that's what's going to bring us into a new level of consciousness. We're now going to be able to work together with spiritual communities that exist beyond this physical realm. There's spiritual communities, there's spiritual cities as well too that you're able to connect with when you leave this body as well too. You can go to these cities, you can go to all of these different realms and dimensions that are healing dimensions, that are knowledge dimensions. They can educate you in many different ways. It's beautiful, right? There's so much that we don't know relating to what exists beyond the planet Earth. And so it's getting past this idea of being too caught up in the physical rat race, and being caught up too much with the physical body and the physical dramas of life. And if we give that so much power, that's what's going to keep us coming back over and over and over again, because we're just creating more tethers for ourselves. So again, to control your perspective on the infinite, to make sure that the walls and boundaries are made based upon your beliefs and personal restrictions, we want to be aware of that. We want to make sure to know that we can actually bring those walls down. We create those boundaries without even knowing about it. So it's very, very important that we're able to shift past that. And the final slide, grieving for a loved one. So when we grieve for a loved one, we create an attachment to that being. When the being that passes sees us grieving, they too can become attached and remain as a wandering entity in the astral realm. Instead, help the loved one and let them return home as you honor their memory and encourage them to enter the light to the spirit world. Help them to realize that they are returning as their true self. Celebrate and appreciate their life. Let it not be tainted by attachment or grief. So this is very, very important, especially when we're going to funerals, memorial services, right? And everybody's just, crying very, very heavily, wishing this person did not go, wanting them back in their life so much. In all due respect, that becomes very selfish, right? Because you're not honoring the person's journey. This is a journey that the person has now decided it's time to leave this life, right? Their conscious self may not get it, but their soul does, right? Their soul is leaving this life. And when you are grieving, you're trying to tug at their heartstrings and saying, no, come back. I don't want you to leave. I can't do this without you, etc., etc. We create that victim consciousness. And that soul feels this. And now they feel extremely guilty about trying to leave their loved ones behind, their family behind, because there's all of these selfish requests and saying, no, I can't do this alone. There's no way that I can possibly, raise the family or pay your bills or whatever it is by yourself, right? You can't change the idea of a soul that has decided to leave, right? You want to be very, very careful with grievancy. And this is something that the majority of, usually I would say the Western world, does not quite understand, right? Is they feel that they're being left behind, their husband, their wife, their brother, their sister, whoever it may be, has passed away, and now they're abandoned. They've stayed behind. This is what I was talking about earlier as well too, is that you're still in contact with that person, but you need to get over your grief. You need to get over the grievancy of the passing of that person. That person is still with you. That person is still connected with you. In order for you to connect with that person, it's about working with the heart, right? It's opening up your empathic centers. It's opening up and aligning with your emotions and being able to communicate with that person, because now that person is more available to you than they ever were before. Because now they can come to you, now they can share insight with you, and they're always there with you, right? If you really have a very strong love bond with somebody who has transitioned, they're going to be with you. They're going to often assign themselves as a guide to you. And they tell you overnight, even when you're going to sleep, in your dreams, don't worry about me. I'm completely fine where I am. It's beautiful here. What I want to ensure is that you're being taken care of, is that you're able to transition in this way. Do not grieve for me. There is nothing to grieve for. Now, when you look at the opposite effect about how you're encouraging that soul to return to the light, about how you're honoring their memory, about how you're so appreciative of how they were a part of your life, now that is giving them a grand, understanding. They are happy to go back into the light now, because now they're not tethering themselves to the idea of the grief that everybody else is giving them and feeling that I have to come back again because I'm feeling sorry for all of these people that are grieving for me. So grievancy in that sense is all just part of a separation anxiety. It's an illusion, right? And this is what we create because we buy in too much to the physical separation illusion program. And we grieve because we're feeling we're never going to see that person again. Of course you are. You're always going to see that person. You're always going to be with that person. That person is always going to be in your field. They're never going to leave. They're going to wait until you join them transitionally, and then you're back together. And now you can co-create together. You can co-create another lifetime. You can explore dimensions together. There's no limit, right? It's getting over this aspect of separation anxiety, getting past this illusion of separation. That's what's causing grievancy. It's all based upon the trauma of abandonment, right? Whenever we feel abandoned, we turn on the waterworks, we turn on the grief. Don't leave me behind, please don't leave, please don't leave, I can't do all this without you, right? And this shows complete and total disempowerment of ourselves. We want to ensure that everything that we're doing here on Earth is in complement together with everybody else, that we don't need everybody else, we don't need to attach or feel like we're obsessed or possessed by a certain person, because again, that leads to dependency, and that leads to a separation consciousness. Whenever you're highly dependent upon a person, you're exploring a separation victim-based consciousness, because you feel that that person has to be your whole world. You have to put them on a 100-foot pedestal while you're down here flat on the ground, right? Kick that pedestal away and see that person as an equal, as a complement to yourself. You are the whole being. You're the only whole being that you will ever meet. Everybody else is a version of yourself, a slice. And so when you're coming into terms and honoring that person, honoring their journey, loving them so much, appreciating the wonderful memories and sharings that they have brought to you in this life, now they're able to go back into source consciousness with love and appreciation, and they're still watching over you. They're still present with you. It's being able to work with yourself, to develop the inner workings of reality, to work with your empathy, to work with your emotions, your feelings, and that is how you're able to open up and connect with your loved one. They are never, ever gone. Nobody ever is. So this is a very, very important thing to understand, especially when we're working with life transitioning. So we are out of time for today. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. I just want to say hello to everybody on the chat. Sorry if I didn't get around to any questions. Again, we only do have a half-hour show here. I will definitely be looking at your questions after the show and adding any particular insight if there are any questions on the chat window there. All right. Thank you so much for watching this episode of The Expansion Point. I'm Brad Johnson. Join us next week, next Friday, at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, with another episode of The Expansion Point. Thank you all. Take care. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Namaste, and may it be well with you.